How can fear of failure keep you stuck too long in a toxic relationship? It's a great question, and it's the topic of our video today. Hi, my name is Eva, and welcome to Soul GPS. In today's video, we're continuing a series of 7 videos that I'm still in the process of making. Today's part 5, and it's about the traits of the people who are typically targeted by narcissists. These are also traits that, if we identify ourselves with them, they denote a personality type that can also stay stuck for a long time in a toxic relationship. What we're doing here essentially is building a model of a personality. Just to recap, the previous 4 traits that we talked about in the earlier videos, there are links down below this video to them if you'd like to see them, include conscientiousness. We talked about empathy, or more specifically hyper-empathy. We talked about cooperativeness and optimism. And we still have left to cover hyper-attachment and also sentimentality. So let's jump into fear of failure. What does it mean? It's a trait that tends to not be so obvious. It's a little bit hidden. All of the traits are interlocked, but this one specifically speaks to a pretty big misconception about the person, the type of a person who falls for the narcissist, or who is manipulated by the narcissist. And the misconception is that somehow this person is really weak, it lacks something, it's like a victim, right? And it's not true, and I really want to illuminate that, because most people who get into these relationships get derailed, which means that there's a significant difference between who this person was before and who it was after. Right? So a lot of people tell me the thousands of coaching hours that I have already done. I heard the story of, before I met this person, I was so full of ideas about what I want to do in my life. I was achieving a lot. I was into this. I had this hobby and that hobby. I had lots of friends. My life was on track. I had a deep sense of my agency and my purpose. And then suddenly all of that just went out the window. It's a very common thing. So please stop thinking that because you've been through this, that means you're somehow a very deeply flawed individual. We all have flaws, all of us. The narcissists, the codependents, the empaths, and everybody in between. Humanity at large is flawed, which is why we need philosophy, psychology, anthropology, sociology to explain all the chaos and that we're in and give it some order, some semblance that it all has meaning, it all makes sense. Religion too definitely falls into this category of things we need in order to function. And for the large part, we do succeed because we live in a civilized world and we're not killing each other all the time. So that's a good thing. So I just want to emphasize this, that actually people who get targeted are people who have a lot to offer. They are achievers often. They are often also extroverted. It is true that psychopaths will look for a weak person, or for instance people like pedophiles, right? They're going to spot the child that is the weakest, that it feels lonely, that has a chip on their shoulder. But here, when it comes to narcissists specifically, it's not quite like that. They like to associate themselves because they're very concerned about self-image, and this is actually about self-image, this video, and you will see why. They're very concerned about that, so they want to associate themselves with people who are, who are interesting, who are beautiful, who have a lot to offer. The degradation happens usually in the relationship. Once you're in it, once the dynamic already started, and it slides into the phase of devaluation and the eventual discard. Once they take it all out of you, there's very little left. You feel exhausted, and then the end comes. So again, let's look at what this trait is. Let's look a little bit deeper. So fear of failure deals primarily with self-image, now on the side of the person who is targeted. So we fear being judged by the narcissist for failing the relationship. We can even take it further and talk about the fear of failing, of the society judging us for failing. The imagined pressure that often many of us carry. It can be imagined, it can also be not imagined. Maybe you have family members who are putting this pressure on you that, you want to get married, you want to have kids, and here you've been investing in this relationship for a lot of time, and now you're gonna walk away. It's like, you fear carrying that burden of, being judged by others and yourself as well. So it's a lot about self-image. And you see how this is a little bit sneaky, You fear failing the relationship. What about this other person? You see the imbalance here, this inequality that sort of slips in, and we're responsible for it because we agreed to it. Truth is, we agreed to it subconsciously, which is why I'm making this series, to make these traits more conscious, which will allow you to work with them. You can also look at fear of failure using the Freudian model of the id, the ego, and the superego. I don't have time in this video to go deeply into it, but there's a lot of materials about this here online, and so you can dive deeper. It's actually a really good model, a useful model for healing and moving out of a toxic relationship. So the fear of failure, it's essentially kind of like an internal assault of the superego, which is the inherited conscience, the fear of the father figure judging you, whipping you into shape, for having not done something that you think is expecting of you. So it's another way to look at it is it's like a big brother, like an inner eye, an inner ear that's continually looking at you, listening to you, looking at what you do, spying on your thoughts. And if you somehow don't fit the model of expectation that you have also internalized, then you're failing, right? Something that happened to me, what made me stuck for a long time in a relationship where I literally felt like my mind was being read. And I talked more about it in another series that I recorded about the verbal assaults of the narcissist. And this specifically was the episode on layering, which is an NLP concept. If you're interested, you can look at that as well. So the narcissist is an absolute expert at hijacking this mechanism of the superego and using it against you. So essentially, you always feel guilty for what had happened, and you'll be the one to take on the blame. So if this trait, fear of failure, is something that you identify with, what's going to happen is you're going to be left thinking, wondering, tormenting yourself with questions like, well, if I was only kinder, more patient, if I was more understanding, more tolerant, more sexy or sexual, this relationship would have worked out. But the truth is that it wouldn't have. Because for narcissists, nothing is ever enough. They are attracted to people, like I just mentioned, who shine, who are confident, who have a lot to offer. But they're also chronically bored. So whatever turns them on today may not be as exciting tomorrow. They're always going to have the need to up the ante, make it more intense, hence the intensity, and many people mistaking intensity for intimacy. Narcissists cannot turn off their pathology on and off and have healthier moments. It's impossible. The pathology is always there, is what they're made of. And because they're very insecure at the core, in order to function, they need you to keep confirming to them their superiority and grandiosity. So they use people like yourself as a mirror. And for that, to keep it somewhat stable, because they're very unstable personalities, they need to feel like they have power and control over you. When they feel threatened in any way, they can turn vicious on the dime. Whereas if they keep getting what they want, and if you keep succumbing to their desires, it's going to be nice for a period of time, but then again, like I said, they will lose respect towards you, and they're going to get bored, right? So again, this chronic instability, that's the name of the game. And hence we have this slot machine phenomenon. Like people just, they never know what is the narcissist mood going to be. Are they going to get triggered? Are they going to be okay? And it comes in waves a lot of the time. And it makes you very stressed. And I get countless examples of this, of the people that I coach, about how when they changed to fit the expectation of the narcissist, it didn't really help. In fact, it made things worse long term because these people gradually lost their sense of self. For example, if she was thin, it was bad. She needed to gain more weight. So she gained more weight and it was still bad. Now she was being called different names, right? If there were no kids in the relationship, it was a problem. Then the kids came, more problems, right? It's always bad. There's always something wrong. The only time the narcissists are happy is when you conform to their wishes in the moment. It's like you need to read their minds. But again, it can change within a second. So very unstable personalities. It's like, even if you conform, they will secretly laugh at you for falling for their games. All the while, the victim part of them, the other side, continues the theater of soliciting pity, of being the victim. Because in pathology, we have two personalities kind of happening at the same time. It's not exactly having multiple personality disorder, but it's kind of close. It's also kind of close to schizophrenia, you could say. You have the person who feels deeply victimized by what had happened to them, and you have the person who knows the extent of their manipulation and they're doing it on purpose. They know exactly what they're doing. So that should answer the question, are they conscious of what they do? It's both. Yes and no. They're conscious of some parts, and they're also doing many things subconsciously because it's how they've always been. It's become a part of their personality. It's just like with you. You're not conscious of everything you do. It's just who you are, who you have become. So more about fear of failure and how it manifests. The point is that you're going to care very much about how people perceive you. That's why fear of failure can keep you stuck for a long time in a toxic relationship. You basically refuse to give up. You equal fighting for the relationship with something that's noble, honorable. And this is especially strong if in the beginning of the relationship, the narcissist tells you how amazing you are, how they appreciate your strength and the fact that you care so much. And it makes you invest in the relationship. But then they will also tell you how others don't like you. They're going to get involved in your relationship with your friends and family, start to criticize you overtly and covertly, and that's going to inevitably lower your sense of self-worth and make you fear the failing of the relationship. Right? Because when we feel weak, it's at this stage when we feel weak, we don't want to leave because we feel so vulnerable. So we keep coming back or giving the narcissist second, third, fourth chances. But then the cycle continues and we spiral down deeper into the addiction. Also, as a narcissistic target, you may not, but you may be competitive. You may be extroverted. A lot of people who are extroverted tend to be competitive. It's not a bad thing. It's great if you want to achieve something, if you have big plans, if you're goal-oriented, why not? Also, our society, as you probably know, very much rewards competitiveness. So there might be this extra benefit for being that person. It's a trait that will make you very attractive to a narcissist, right? Again, they want to associate themselves with your successes. But here's the interesting part. It can also make you attracted to the narcissist, which tends to be more on the extroverted side, especially if you're dealing with the classic type narcissist. They seek out the people who shine, who are strong, who are adaptable, tolerant, and able to withstand their dominant nature. And you too may enjoy someone that you can go head to head with, someone who's very opinionated, who knows what they want and they know how to get it. And again, normally being competitive brings success and achievement, but with a narcissist, again, we're venturing beyond the healthy context. Instead of running away, you stay. You think that battling it out is the right thing to do. You may want to stay in order to catch them cheating or doing something behind your back so you can prove something to them, to win a battle. But unfortunately, this will only suck you deeper and deeper into the crazy making abuse cycle and make you sick exhausted, more trapped, and more addicted. So here's something to realize. It's a humbling realization, especially for someone who's competitive, but it's an important one because it will free you. And that is that your personality type is no match to the pathology of the narcissist. They will always win if they pull you into the ring. Future faking is also something that's tied to the fear of failure. You may be full of ideas for what this relationship could be or could have been, and the idea of letting it go feels absolutely unbearable. So you fight for something that's not even there. You fight for an idea, for an illusion, for merely a promise, for a carrot that they keep dangling in front of you to keep you in the dynamic. Another element of the failure that I want to mention before we wrap up is shame. You may fear feeling ashamed of having failed. This is something important to realize. If shame is something, especially toxic shame, that you identify with, I want to encourage you to reach for the book by John Bradshaw. It is the book that's titled Healing the Shame That Binds You. It's a wonderful book that can give you a lot of insight and a pathway out of this pathology. So you may feel like you don't want to feel this shame, but here's the thing. All you need to do to get yourself on a straight path with this is to reframe the context. Remember, there is no shame in giving up something that hurts you, something that's harmful to you. There's actually a great deal of courage in having done so, in walking away. So what can you do to overcome this fear of failure? First of all, make it context appropriate. So just exactly what I just mentioned. Giving up something that is toxic is not an indication that you have failed on something. It's actually a good thing. It's a sign of courage on your part because you're going to be giving something up, and giving something up is the last thing we tend to want to do. But life is a lot about these trade-offs. We give something up that's toxic, that's bad for us, so we make room for something that's positive. It's just like with alcohol and cigarettes, right? Or sugar. You don't feel guilty about giving it up. You don't. So why feel guilty about giving up toxic relationship? You see? Another way to go about this is to treat it just like with empathy, meaning that you want to apply empathy towards yourself. If you're an empathic person, which means that you're very much outwardly directed, you want to help other people. Then when you apply empathy towards yourself, you start to feel sad for yourself. You start to feel like, oh my gosh, you need help. You too need help. You too have needs. It starts to change the internal dynamic. It's the same with fear of failure. Apply it towards your self-care. Don't give up on yourself. And also remember that relationships fail. In fact, most relationships do. Most people who ever get into relationships, their relationships fail. It's usually just one that works out, right? Or sometimes we have relationships that work for a period of time. So again, sometimes when things fail, it's a good thing because it makes room for something new. So don't be afraid of failing, because sometimes failing, if we put it in the right context, it's exactly the thing you need to do. So I hope this video was helpful. I look forward to your comments and your questions. And as always, I'm sending you lots of love. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.